What follows is a conversation with Len Berkman. He is professor of theater at Smith College and has taught playwriting, theater history, and the dramatic literature of various nations and cultures since 1969. In this episode of And Now, Len discusses theater, film and television, as well as giving us some lively anecdotes from his lengthy career in the business. And now, my friends, Len Berkman.
There you
See
go.
this? We don't know. Okay.
Action!
Okay, so
Yeah.
what time? How much time do you have? You
I
have
have
class
till
at
1 o'clock.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I
And
have
it's
to get ready for my 1:20
Okay.
class.
We're going to go as long as you keep being
20
interesting, but we think we think it's simple. It's not to be a really long show.
Sure.
So,
you said the show itself is half an hour.
Half an hour.
About
you
it,
know,
change.
about, yeah.
But we could still do a pause and then start officially if you like.
Well, I'm happy to officially. Okay. Officially, we're beginning. I'm going to turn.
This will all
and act
probably
like
stay
we're
in
beginning.
anyway because it's
Sure.
Right.
What a kick.
Okay, can you guys stop talking while I'm introducing it?
Of
There you
course.
go. This is the way we work. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, for the day with, Len Berkman, head of the theater department at Smith.
Not head. Daniel Kramer is the chair.
You're
And
not.
We've never had a head.
Oh, I thought
I've
the
been
chair was...
chair. I was chair for 8 years in the late 70s and
Right.
through the year 80s.
Right.
But no, I haven't been chair since.
You see how this is going to go?
Yeah.
I'm going to say a
everything's
sentence and
gonna
he's
be
going to
long.
fix it. He's going to
That's
fix
right.
it. That's what I like about
So,
it.
do we want to know what your official title is, or do you not? Head honcho, head
I've
creative?
got a long title, which I often compare to one of those tin can lines that they use at weddings, so that whoever moves around gets noticed. I'm the Anne Hesseltine Hoyt Chair Professor of Theater.
Wow.
And who wants that? I actually knew her son.
Wow.
He was a casting director, Scott Hesseltine. Pure fluke.
Right.
He was the discoverer of Robert Redford, of all things.
Oh, wow.
And my own history there is convolutedly related. So that's the only reason I'm mistaken as chair of the department.
Oh, I
now.
see. It's easy for me to think about all things come through you, and we call you the title of whatever the head says for that, But you've been here a while, and so you've made a lot of
years.
choices.
Yes.
54 years.
And,
Yes.
and Denis was in the best way saying, I don't know a lot about theater. I wonder how I fit into the conversation. And I said, very simply, say to him that,
Yeah.
and pretty much go from there, which is he's gotten enamored with digital like a whole lot of people.
Sure. I think it's wonderful that you don't have a whole lot of knowledge about theater, because one of the things in my playwriting class is I try to find out who has never read a play, who has never seen a play. What that means is it's a tabula rasa.
Yeah.
Everything goes. There's no one way to do anything. And those who have, quote, experience learn from those who don't, as
Good.
much as the other way around.
Excellent. Well, I'm here to learn. That's for sure.
But there's the other side of that question was, how do you deal with somebody who's enamored with the digital and video, because that's the age we're in.
Well, sure.
Let me clarify that, because
Please.
you say digital, but to tell you the truth, and I found this out today, I'm relieved to hear that you're a cineast. So I love film, and I love serials, I love movies. So
Sure.
So film and video, I guess that would be more kind of what you were talking about as far as digital.
I'm saying that he is offering himself to, as I would say to you, what is the particular charm of theater that's kept you here that long? And that might convince him that he's missed out, like something.
That's a good point.
And if I can begin where you don't think I'm going to begin,
Well, that's
I'll
usual.
begin with my early teens watching live television drama, because that changed my life.
Interesting.
I could see, before I could afford to go to the theater, I could see actors like Kim Stanley and Geraldine Page and Anne Bancroft and Paul Newman begin their careers on live television, doing phenomenal work of plays by Ted Moselle and Reginald Rose and Patty Chayefsky and Robert Anderson and others, and leading from that to finding soap opera
Interesting.
And soap opera in New York, as contrasted largely, I think, with L.A., New York has wonderful actors on soaps who do stage work.
Yeah, exactly.
So just to cite one out of the blue, or two out of the blue, Lenka Peterson and Peggy McKay on Love of Life, which lasted for a while, did off-Broadway plays that I then went to see. And that was one of my introductions to theater. Another was in the Jan Hus Playhouse in the East 70s in New York. My first year of high school teacher took us to see the Scottish play. I suppose I'm forbidden from giving its title. And there was one moment in that Scottish play production that told me what theater was all about. It was when Lady Macduff is warned by a not quite identified figure that she's in danger, that she and her family are in danger. In this particular production, the wonderful actress Mel Dowd, who played Lady Macbeth, was the one who rushes in undisguised to warn Lady Macduff that she's in danger, and it spoke to the ambiguity, the ambivalence that Lady Macbeth has about what she's doing in a way that the play itself doesn't really, not sufficiently at least for me. And I thought, oh, without changing a word, you can change a whole perspective. Theater can do that. Theater does it on stage, and theater does it with the audience because again, Kim Stanley, I guess one of the reasons I'm in theater was asked, how could you do over 600 performances of this particular play and not get tired, not get bored, not quit? And she said, I don't do it that many times. I do it one time, each time, because it's a different audience each time. And the actor hears the audience, even if there's the invisible fourth wall. And so it's a different performance every time and a different discovery. The discoveries are phenomenal.
You see, this is why I was sure we would have a good time. do you know, I wanted you to throw Play of the Week in that mix.
Yes.
Because that was the one that got me.
Play of the Week.
And I thought I was headed for theater for sure.
Sure.
You know,
Playhouse 90. All
they
the
had
whole
the Master
evening.
Builder in that series.
With E.G. Marshall and Lois Smith.
So
now I'm clueless.
Can
Can you elaborate? So what? Playhouse 90? Is that what you said?
Playhouse 90 was an hour. It was when television drama went from an hour to an hour and a half, and the 90 was the hour and a half.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And in Master Builder, to speak of that, I actually refer to that production in class because it was every bit as important for me and certainly formative for me. And in particular, E.G. Marshall was wonderful, but Lois Smith was out of this world. And the way that she portrayed Hilda Wangel in that play told me so many things of question marks about her that become, again, part of how you teach that play. Is this woman insane? Is this woman evil? Is she there for retribution? This man kissed her at age 12. She was 12. He bent her back. She had seen him build this tower and climb it, and she was enamored of him, and therefore easily, as we would conventionally put it today, she was his victim. Was that what was there? Or was it an attempt, there's a new song on, I'm Looking for the First Time. Somebody who wants to recapture the thrill, the excitement of a first experience. And all the experiences afterwards are not that first experience. And she's looking for that first experience, in effect, to recur. And is that what Hilda Wangel is about? And
this is why, I audited a couple of these classes. And the thing that astonishes me, I don't care whether you talk about the 12 Angry Men. He can name the cast members still. Len,
and the 12 Angry Women. Well, actors are to me the marvel of theater. I love playwrights. I worship certain playwrights. I love directors. But when you sit in a rehearsal room I'm thinking of Michael Stolberg. Don't know if you know his work. He's done some film like A Simple Man, for example. And he is playing Chiron at age 70. And Michael's just sitting there chatting away when the director looks a little restless. Wonderful director, Hal Brooks. And so Michael says to him, are we getting ready? And Hal says, well, yes, when you're ready. A lot of politeness goes on in rehearsals. You know, we're often thinking the opposite. And Michael, I can't do what he does, but he moves in his seat. He's only sitting in a standard chair in our retreats at Vassar College for New York Stage and Film. And he moves his body, and you watch him age as he's in his seat.
Wow.
And he uses an accent for that role as well. This is for a presentation as a play in development. It's not a production. We're helping the playwright, David Nyfris. I love names, by the way, because they're people. Further develop his play. And suddenly, there he is as Chiron. He's not Michael Stolberg anymore. And I will remember that moment ever, because actors are transformative, chameleons. The rest of everybody in theater do what they do, and I'm not putting them down. I'm certainly not putting myself down as a playwright, but just being in the moment of somebody's chameleon identity is magical. Suddenly you don't know really who you're dealing with. I had just to name another actor, playwright, who was a graduate student of mine in the 70s, Kevin Heelan. He would come into my office not as himself, because he was developing a play called 10 East about all of the patients and staff in a mental institution that he had worked in as a staff member in the Baltimore area. And he had decided he wanted to do a play about that institution. And he came in, the first week I didn't know what he was doing because he gave me no preparation. He came in as a woman who thought of herself as a countess, who had flatulence, who would periodically get up from her seat and wave her arms to get the smell out of my office in this case. And for a while I thought, what's going on? Well, I'll just wait and see if I can find out. And then the Countess left the room, and I saw Kevin in between in my classes and other ways be Kevin. And then he comes the next week as a totally different age, race, etc.
So this is staying in character?
He was staying in character, which reminds me back again of Anne Bancroft when she was doing Two for the Seesaw, and Mike Wallace was the interviewer, and he starts to ask her questions, and she's answering it in the same tone of voice and the same accents as she does Gittel Maska. And suddenly he said to her, I'm not talking to Anne Bancroft, am I? I'm talking to Gittel Maska. And
this is during an interview.
This is during a live interview, a live television era.
Because staying in character, I guess, for actors, whether it's stage or television or film, I mean, that's a technique for the actor to, I guess, to just be more effective. But is it also possibly a technique to keep everyone around them on their toes, other actors, other production people? Or?
I would say it's individual. Because my wife, for instance, who's a historian, an oral historian in this instance, Joyce Berkman, UMass emeritus. She was interviewing a series of actors at Sundance about what they do if they're playing villains. What do they bring home when they are playing a role that's really abhorrent? And each actor had a different method, but the point was, I do not bring my character home. I need, in effect, to take an emotional shower, a psychological bath, and it's ruinous to me. And here's, again, television into film, into stage. Tony Perkins, one of the first things he ever did that I saw on live television was a play by a black author, Lewis Peterson, a brilliant playwright who, even with the revivals of black theater in our era, has not had his due. And Anthony Perkins played a young man whose mother puts a safety pin with a sign on it every time he leaves the house, because in case he gets lost, in case he needs help, he won't know how to ask. And this was a play between Perkins and Kim Stanley, naturally.
Yes.
She played a striptease dancer he meets and the relationship they develop. And she actually did what I call a facial striptease on live television. I was sweating in my early teens watching this. You didn't see anything but neck up and what she was doing as she was performing, and it was out of this world. Well, based on that, Anthony Perkins got a seven film contract. He had also done the understudy and then took over for John Kerr in Robert Anderson's Tea and Sympathy on stage. So they knew he had what they call the chops.
What it took.
And they signed him to a film contract that would end up with Joey, this play, as the seventh film. But he was not doing what actors need to do for their health. So after making several magnificent films, Friendly Persuasion was one of them, he did the Jim Pearsall story and basically forgot to keep his mind where it was as opposed to what was happening to this baseball player, and he collapsed just before doing Joey. So Joey never got made. And I think that is a risk actors take. It's a risk.
It's legendary.
I must say, some people in my life have taken. I had a person who didn't like telling people he was a psychiatrist. So we'd go to parties together, and they would ask him what he would do, and he'd make something up. And then he would invent
He's acting already.
He was acting, and he's not an actor. And I never knew what he was going to do. It was a little bit like Kevin Heelan in my office. But it was fun. But on the other hand, I questioned him about this. Was that respectful to a person who is genuinely wanting to know who you are? You can say, I feel uncomfortable being whatever, unprivate, but not to give them a straightforward answer or respectful answer.
I want to get back to something.
Yeah, go ahead.
I tend to get phlegmed up. But here's what I'd like to talk about. You started to say that in Lady Macbeth, that she has a transformation for that moment. And here's the thing, on stage, you have that each night to put shades and meanings on things. But that is the beauty of stage. And what we're talking about is your life here, really to teach people that can be the freshness between. And what worries me is, in the film and television world, they have lost a lot of that because they have the ability to cut around those moments. And so when you're here, you infect people with that beauty and your teaching and things.
Well, here's the thing about being here. This is not a professional theater training program. We are a liberal arts college. We want students to learn about themselves, about the world, to basically hone their thinking, to question. And so theater becomes one discipline through which one can do this. We've had an unusual number of students who then become professional. As we were talking earlier, Diana O is going to bring her work here, and she was a wonderful actress, human being. I prefer a human being, and then the others are footnotes. And now we're having the benefit of her professional expertise and working with students who are here in the present at Smith as undergraduates, seeing what happens to this one particular person among many who have gone on into
Give us one of the few, that you remember memorably coming out of here that you still are in touch with, that you care about.
Sure. I'll start out with playwrights, since because the first year I came here, Wendy Wasserstein came over from Mount Holyoke, and she ended up studying 2 years. Her final 2 years at Mount Holyoke with me at Smith. And here I'll use her as one example because it actually represents other people too. She wanted to write in a way that she knew people were not writing. One of her early scenes was a group of women, students, having not a pillow fight, but a mock fight throwing bloody Kotex at each other. And I asked her if she'd read it in class. We had a choice at that point if you could read the play yourself or you could have others read it. And she was really shaken with the idea of reading it, especially because I've tended to have heavy 5 college enrollment, and that particular year, I was the only playwright for 10 years in this valley. I had half a class of 5 college students, or then it was 4 college that first year, because we didn't have a 5th, and then Smith students. And she thought all the guys would laugh. All the girls, so to speak, would
cringe.
All the young women would cringe, or all of that. And they loved it. And she came out of herself, and she began to realize that what she wants to write, that nobody else at that point was even approaching, was worthy of communicating to other people. Another playwriting student, Judy Katz, who came over from UMass just to start off away from Smith, wanted to be coming out as lesbian, which she has since done publicly, so I'm not in any way spilling the beans. Wonderful lesbian writer, but she didn't know how to do that, except I said, why not have non-animate lesbians? Why not mushrooms? Why not marshmallows? And she wrote a lesbian play in which the characters were all marshmallows. And this becomes more and more what you discover, that no playwright is like any other, just like no human being is like any other. A woman who does screenwriting now as well as playwriting, Erin Cressida Wilson is her name. She's best known for Secretary, if you know that film. And her first scene in my playwriting class was in a room with 2 basically narrow beds. I guess we call them twin beds. There were 2 people in one bed and 1 person in another, and they have what seems like an innocuous dialogue. And lo and behold, in the middle of this innocuous dialogue, there was a male and female in one bed and the female in another, and she had the male in the bed with the female switch beds and continue the dialogue in bed with the second woman. The class was chilled in, what's going on? It takes just a little adjustment. And Erin realized that, you can do that. You don't have to have guns and shoot 'em ups and all of that to have a plot, because the plot can sneak up on you, as opposed to places where the plots that don't sneak up on you.
Jump up and get you.
Jump up and get you. I saw it in Bruges recently again, and there it was. Plot upon plot upon plot. And this is where, yes, you're learning a technique, but you're also learning how people perceive experience, and how you can be sitting, like we're sitting right now, and something small occur. If you have a camera, you have the camera catch it for the audience, but on stage, it needs the audience to figure out what to watch. The director on stage often has to become the camera, has to do something to cause attention to be either distracted from or focused on a given area. It's one of the skills that when you see a an adept director do.
Right.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Because this might be a good time.
Please.
When you said earlier live television drama,
Yes.
Just to clarify, are you talking about live broadcast or live before a live audience with no edits, no cuts, or?
Yeah, no cuts.
Okay, so not live as in it's going out live and people turn their TVs on. But
Yes.
Oh,
No,
okay,
that-
okay.
Exactly.
So which
Live in
was
every sense of the
both
word.
ways.
that was the common. I mean, before there was videotape, I guess.
Before
that was the only-
kinescope, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the closest that television got to pure theater, because it was
Yes.
the same thing. Audiences at home, but especially if they had a live audience in the production, had to do their own camera choices. Where do I look? That kind of
Absolutely,
thing.
and also when you say that, the people that I was focused on who were writing for television were also writing for the stage at the same
Oh,
time.
yeah.
Ted Moselle won a Pulitzer for his adaptation of James A.G.'s The Death in the Family. It was called All the Way Home, and Patty Chayefsky wrote a number of plays as well. A little bit after, because he became known, as Ted became known first as a television writer, and those were the days. Now we have the other end of it, where people who are writing plays go into television for the money of it.
That's right. Well, you were expecting to do a lot of writing, and you've done writing yourself. Has
Yes.
that played a big part in your ability to teach, or the ability to help?
I would say, I'm going to, again, circle around the answer. One of the finest teachers of playwriting or dramaturgs that I know is Morgan Jeunesse, who's not known as a playwright and who has worked with a great number of playwrights. They are deeply indebted to her. She and I worked together as a team, and she's magnificent. So to the degree that I benefit from writing plays, and I've written about 50 plays at this point, but I don't write them for commercial reasons. When they're done, they're sort of grabbed from me. I'm not interested in a career of that sort. I don't like being in the spotlight.
You didn't
It's
act?
only because I know you that I'm doing this, really. It's,
Okay, but you didn't act either, right? You didn't. You're singing world, right?
my
Did you
acting,
try some
my
of that?
acting, yeah, drama school, you have to.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And so my shame as an actor was what you should never do in an improv. I was was acting. I was older by then. I was in my late teens, early 20s, when I had to do a scene, unwritten scene, with the actress that I worshipped in my class at that point, Janet Sarno, who nobody knows now, but I can give you names of people who never became big, and whose talent is magnificent. And Janet was playing a prostitute in a carnival. And I was supposed to be just an innocent young man making my way into the world. And she asked me for a match to light her cigarette. And I said no. And she asked in a very seductive way, of course, because that was how we were going to develop the plot. And I was so shy. I said, actually, I don't smoke. And I ran off stage. And that prematurely ended the improv. And I was so ashamed of that.
Okay.
But she really touched something. People have been trying to get me to smoke all my life.
Or to act.
And to act all my life, right, exactly. And
Well, look, thank you for the
success.
interview, because I know you don't do them, right?
Yeah.
I know that's part of your role, but you know
Oh, I
what?
didn't
You
know
have
that.
such
Really?
you have such a history
Thank you.
that people need to know something more about it. And I think that the other thing you're talking about is this ability to change as an actor. And do you
Yes.
think people actually learn personally from that? Like you ran from that, but actors, are they better human beings or something because they've had to play different parts? Or how does that work?
Yeah, it really depends on why they're acting rather than the parts they play, because there are actors, again, having worked with so many, there are actors who act to explore. They choose characters who are like lamps that are going to shed light on not only their nature but on human nature. And when you work with those actors, the nature of the work involves that. We bring in our own experiences, those of us who are not actors as well as those who are. We talk about relationships. We try to figure out what we have experienced and what we know can serve the play, because that's the agenda. But then there are other actors, and I really am not putting them down because but it will sound like I am.
Go ahead.
Because
I'm worried about one thing.
Oh, yes. Can I loosen?
Well, no, I wanted to make sure that this wasn't completely bumping, since we don't actually monitor as it goes.
I
So
see.
I wanted to make sure that it was positioned a
Okay.
little better for you.
And this stays in, so we're going to see his rear end.
We forget. I should have done it from
Am I
this
mo- am I
side.
Oh, yeah.
Take two. There is no take two.
No, this is wonderful because I'm going to sort of jump away and jump back.
Yeah.
One of the most vivid stage directions that Henrik Ibsen ever wrote was when in Wild Duck, this young woman, I believe she's 10 at this point, somewhere in that vicinity, has killed herself because she had been led to believe that if you love somebody or something and you want to make that okay, in this case it was a dead duck that she had been nurturing, sacrifice what matters most to you. And she ends up not really intentionally killing herself. And then Ibsen says, here's the stage direction, when her body is carried on stage, make sure the soles of her feet show. Because for him, at that moment, that's the most vulnerable part. So when you had your rear to the camera,
Slightly vulnerable.
Well, look, you know what's funny about it is now the strap has actually gone between the clip. And I still am not done, and I'll show it again. Look, Len, see, you.
We just want to let him get back to the second type
I want
of
to get him wherever he goes. You know, whatever.
No, don't worry about it.
So the second type of actor would be the actor who is out to promote their own career.
Yeah.
They are looking for roles that they can eat up or kill the scenery, or I sometimes blank on these cliches. And that would be another kind of actor.
So looking for a high-paying job as opposed to looking for an art form that they can really...
for fame.
Yeah.
And there are actors who are actors in relationship. They love to work with particular other actors. So the way you can often get them to agree to do a play is by, and it's not necessarily that the other actor is a big name or anything, it's an actor who interacts.
Yeah.
Because actors who play with you are fascinating. And rehearsals are as much as performances in terms of changing from one rehearsal to the next and finding this layer and finding that layer and then deciding which am I going to play today, because the layers are not competitive, they're conjoined. And so you have actors who also, there's this debate, don't act from the head, act from the heart, or act from your gut, or whatever. It's as though, again, parts of our own body are at war with each other, and it needn't be and shouldn't be. And there are actors who recognize that, and you find them, just their whole being is what they're doing. But then again, film, television, a film actor does not need to use their whole body. Often enough, you won't see their whole body. And what does that mean? That they're acting face acting.
Is that part of the projection for the theater, that, you know, like they have to engage themselves in a way to get the audience that they don't have to do? Is that something you can teach here? That, you know, you must reach out.
We must. There again, what we're dealing with, you have, I think, on camera, the size of this theater, it seats like 460 people, fire law limit. There are theaters that are too large. for given plays. And the person who realized that was a playwright named Strindberg, who started his own intimate theater in 1907. And he said, basically, I don't want actors wearing cosmetics. I want the audience to be able to see every muscle on their face move.
We were talking a bit about this yesterday.
And if you project for the last row, something happens that falls away from your voice.
Exactly, that's right. So intimate theater is it what number? Or are we just talking small numbers? Anything under 200, 100?
There are these legal limits. 99-seater, 199-seater. I would say intimacy in theater stops with 199 roughly.
So no amplification, no microphones.
No microphones, no amplification. Hear all the subtleties in the spoken voice. Yeah. But then that voice won't reach a larger theater. And earlier plays than modern plays were written for these larger theaters in many instances, some written for open-air tennis courts.
So I'm sort of suggesting that maybe microphones would work in some cases if they have to have a big theater, the way people are trained now.
That's right.
So
even
how
for
do you feel?
singers.
So you're not broadly against microphones?
I'm not against anything that doesn't dictate beyond itself. I don't know how the grammar works there. In other words, if I do a microphone performance and it says to everybody else, look how good that was, you should all use microphones, that I object to. But if I use a microphone and somebody else says, I don't like that because that person is not really trained to have a voice that carries, well, if they don't need a voice that carries for the particular project they're doing, let them be. This is better than that. Many times something is better than something else, but not everything is better than something else.
So do you have something more? I wanted to
No, please, go ahead.
We always try to figure out who's got ants and pants, like trying to figure it out. But what I feel is that you've been through a tough couple of years, and I wanted to know, during COVID and everything, was that life-changing here? How did actors in a school deal with such the last few years?
Yeah, I can only speak for the students and the actors that I spoke with about this, because we were all making adjustments. I'm very inept technically, so when I do a Zoom anything with anybody, I ask them to be the host. I don't know how. I've gotten kicked out of my own Zoom classes several times, and I had to protect myself.
You're kidding.
I had no.
Wait, how does that happen? I'm a student and I'm in your Zoom class.
Yes.
And I say, I'm sorry, we've tired of you. Now get out of the class.
No, I got kicked out by the technology.
It got bumped.
Where did the line go? The technology says we don't like you? Wait a minute, I'm missing this.
The connection, sometimes you get a little thing on the screen and it says your connection is insecure or your connection is wobbly. And then suddenly nobody's there. I'm watching a blank screen.
Right.
So I'm not in the class that they're in. And one of my thrills there, and I think one reason I've thought of that one in particular, was when somebody let me back in. One of my 3 students who were assisting on that in that class session, I said to them, "What did you do when I wasn't with you?"
Right.
And they summarized the continued discussion of the play that we were discussing. It was thrilling.
No.
Yes.
What a takedown for a moment, going, okay, you guys can do it.
You can do it. Well, that's the thing, because you really want to empower your students.
Right.
And one of the aspects of the COVID era was challenge. Some students actually came out of themselves, talked more on screen than they did in person. It's totally unexpected, because I'm so not anti-screen, but unscreen, I guess, about these things.
I'm going to go to another issue. You know, one time, Denis and I thought that we could persuade you to come down and do this in the Victory Theater
Yes,
in
you told me
Holyoke,
that.
because that's been such a big thing about Holyoke.
Yes.
And then there's no heat, and then you have a busy schedule. So
Yes.
here's what I want. The question that I had reserved is theater more important than ever now? Because we're arguing about technology and all these sort of things. How can you say to people what we really must treasure about theater that's different from other things?
Yes, actually, beyond saying, and here I'll use a local artist, there is now, just as one example of theater that had not existed before, immersive theater.
Yes.
Do you know the phrase?
Yes, I actually haven't participated, but I do know.
Yeah, John Bechtold, who is the head of the theater program at Amherst High School, got himself trained in England by cheek by jowl, I would say tongue-in-cheek, theater, which does immersive theater. The best known work, not by John, in New York was Sleep No More, where an audience is part of the situation. It actually is preceded by Marie Irene Fornes, a remarkable playwright who rethought the idea of theater. Couldn't theater take place in multiple rooms simultaneously? And the audience then moved from room to room, seeing the play in different arrangements, hearing through the wall the scenes they either were going to hear or had heard. So they have all of that.
Right.
And there was a work done at the Wisteria House in Holyoke that took that as its cue. So that tells you something about showing what you cannot have, I thought, in any other form but theater. But again, I don't see theater as superior. I don't see theater as a lot of things theater is praised for as exclusive to theater.
Right.
Life is exclusive.
Right.
And I was going to say that simultaneity, for example, in theater is easily possible, but it also turned out to be possible in film. There's a film called Manifesto. Kate Blanchett was a force behind its making. She plays 13 different characters simultaneously. The film is shown in museums rather than in film houses. And you choose, you're free as an audience member, as in immersive theater, you're free to go from one screen to another, to go back and forth, to look over your shoulder at a previous character that she plays and the character they're all unrecognizably her. They're all quite different. So again, I don't want to sell theater short.
I want you to sell theater big, of course. I think actually that you could just as easily be a little less generous and say the actors can experience with each other something special in a theater performance, like it's new every night, different.
Yes.
So there are certain things that I wanted you to say if I was writing your shit.
Sure, of course. But then you take a film director like John Cassavetes, and the way he would rehearse his films come much closer to theater, and he uses stage actors. It really depends on, I think, the individual instance, but I think what you're aiming for, which is true, is that there are dominants. There are dominants in theater that are different than dominants in film, from era to era. And the dominant in theater that I'm going to do, again, a double thing, I separate not so much commercial theater from serious theater. I think commercial theater is serious, but I separate the kind of theater that is mechanical from the theater that's exploratory. When I first came to the Five College area, there was a director here, and whenever I say anything negative, I don't like to name the person.
I noticed that.
He was a terrific director for specific kinds of theater. He would take a recording of a given play and play it for his cast and say, that's how you do it. And that's what he did. And he did a lot of good stuff, but it was that kind of stuff. And that kind of stuff doesn't appeal to me personally, and because it's not exploratory. And I think anything that is exploratory, as life is exploratory.
But don't they have to have references? In other words, if you have a life already, then you can move from there into the theater. But a lot of people are pretty raw, so they're just guessing. You know, I'm just saying.
That's a good question, and it's a question I think that can be answered by sequence. If you have, I'm going to actually use a Sundance theory here. If you have a playwright who comes in with a vision for the play that we are to develop, then that playwright is ready to have all kinds of attitudes, all kinds of options, in effect, put in their laps. Mm-hmm. And they can choose because they have their vision. They know what fits, what doesn't with them. Yeah. The playwright who doesn't, and so therefore the person who doesn't in life, know what they want yet.
That's right.
If they're presented with the shoulds, or this is what everybody buys, or anything that predates their self-discovery, I think is going to get very confused.
But it is true that some people transcend all that stuff by having what's called star quality, so you almost want to watch them no matter what, right? But this is just the luck of the draw, you know, people have that.
That's a real challenge to me, that phrase, because star quality, charisma, I mean, there are various words for
like
it.
You got.
Well, you know.
Come on, I'm just throwing it at you. But it is, you have a certain magnetism.
I'm told
infectious.
that. Well, so if I'm told that a lot, do I therefore believe it? I don't know. The thing is, what I have learned is that I don't like being non-spontaneous. I don't like lecturing to a class from something I've written out. Mm-hmm. Although there are things I do read. I like to feel I've thrown away inhibitions. Up to a point, because you're aware of laws, you're aware of proprieties.
Some things you can't do in public.
That's right. But you know, some of those things you can't do in public, I think themselves need to be re-examined.
I'm totally with you.
Yeah, and so that's the whole matter of that. And so go back to star quality. It troubles me. The concept troubles me because it means that you're in a group, and everybody's looking at you. I'm actually writing. I've been writing lately what I now call performance stories. Mm-hmm. It's where it's a short story, but it can actually be performed. Mm-hmm. 2 of them were published in the Mass Review this past year, and I just started doing it without thinking about it, and I was thinking about something else. Just to give you an example, it's an attack on Shakespeare. This story, the performance is called Cordelia Lear. I think Shakespeare unfairly threw her out of the play the way that Lear throws her out of his life. Really? And so she has to tell what happened to her and how she understood it.
Yeah, I like that.
I used elements from the play, but also elements not from the play. It's to do what you're wanting to do, and then you just happen to do it in a way that catches people's attention.
Well, you had that. Well, I call that, life itself, which was in your classes, and a couple of times I was lucky to be there. You had that gesture of going like, we don't know for sure exactly what the next word's going to be, but we're on to something.
Yes.
Here. And so that they tend to be paying attention for that.
Yes.
So how about you? Are you doing pretty well? We could do along. You know what I'm beginning to think?
Yes.
That people would just watch what you're doing for us right now from top to bottom and feel entertained more than just the regular stuff. Don't you feel like you bring life to your job? And is this too much of an exaggeration to ask?
I hope to, is all I can say. And I again, whether this is related or not, I love people. Mm-hmm. as you know. And I don't mean I love all people. Obviously, there is some people who are elected to high office I can't stand. But the thing is that if you are able, the phrase I use is if you are able to be with people and not wear a tuxedo. Put me in a tuxedo and all the life will drain from me.
We still have the Converse shoes.
Yeah, we're good. Can you just lift one up in the camera?
Well, again,
you're famous for those shoes.
well, I would actually love to wear tricolor sneakers. I had them at one point. They were green on one side, purple on another. They had a red tongue and an orange stripe or whatever. I tried to replace the one I wore out, and they said, "Oh, those are for 5-year-olds."
Okay. But let me just talk about that for a second. You're known to wear shorts and bright clothes around.
Yes.
Did that just happen to you or did you decide to do it? How did that evolve? Because you become the character with a little ponytail and sneakers. That's a persona you chose, or did that just happen?
Here's a bit of that history. My first teaching job, when I had my MFA but not yet my doctorate, was in El Paso, Texas, for an English department, which I was told, "Why are you going there? And nobody's going to understand you." And I thought, well, let's find out. And that's when I came to love teaching, because I was too shy and I thought I couldn't teach. But my first son, Joyce says, and my first son was en route to being born, was born in El Paso. I had to do something. And I was offered this job. So I took it. And I made one mistake after another from their point of view, one of which was trying to dress casually. I had to wear a jacket. I had to wear a tie. I had to keep the tie tight. That was their rule. Okay, if I have to do that, I have to do something else to balance it. This was Texas. In Texas, at that point, this is what is now the University of Texas at El Paso. So hopefully it's changed. I was told exactly what books to teach. They were the great American novels. Faulkner, Fitzgerald, Hemingway, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, I can teach them. I like the work. They're interesting. If I can add one more. They said, what do you want to add? And I said, just one person, Gertrude Stein. And they said, but you'll still teach Hemingway, Faulkner, Sherrod Anderson, etc. I said, yeah, sure. And what they didn't know was that Gertrude Stein was such an influence on everybody they wanted me to teach. And that if I acquainted my students with the techniques Gertrude Stein had found, had developed, had discovered in language use, they would understand Hemingway, for example, very differently.
Right, very important.
And so each time, and 4 times it came up that I did something I was not supposed to do, but that was one thing that I got away with, so to speak. The other things I got away with, I had 90 students. One was always complaining. I mean, it was a different one. They were right to complain because it didn't suit them, but it suited the others. And that's where I developed this sense, going back to your question, of what am I going to do if I'm teaching somewhere else where I can wear what I want? For one thing, I didn't get over my nervousness about teaching. My mockery of myself is I'd walk into a classroom, I'd find something I could put my leg on so that I wouldn't be just standing like, a statue. Well, statues don't stand like that either. And then the first thing I noticed was my shoes. The only shoes I had were the shoes I wore at my wedding. They're awful. I mean, awful not because of the wedding, but awful for teaching purposes because they separate me from my students. So that's where on went to sneakers.
Right then,
the sneakers first. And then the pants came off. And I was in shorts because I feel constricted. I should tell you, just here to be clearer, ever since I had lymphoma treatment, and the chemo altered my sense of temperature in my body. I still wear shorts when it's appropriate by temperature to weather to wear shorts.
So you got something warm under there.
I need something warmer than shorts. Where I was earlier at Smith, that relates to you, is my department started betting on me. What would be the first day it would be so cold that I would come in trousers instead of shorts.
They had a betting pool.
They lost quarter after quarter because I didn't come in until December 10th that year.
Wow.
And I didn't know that was going on.
No.
So when I found out it was going on, I wore trousers the first day of the semester. There it was. I don't like being self-conscious. And that's part of it as well.
But the fact that you dress so colorfully and you're this character, you can't help but be noticed.
Well,
we're grateful for that. I thought of you as a flower around the campus.
I guess so. But the thing is, I say things about myself other people find ridiculous, and it probably is. I feel invisible. I spent so much of my life in New York City, growing up in Brooklyn, going to Columbia, as I'm not here. I mean, I'm doing what I have to do, but I hardly spoke in class. I had a lot to say, and I wrote it, but I didn't speak.
You're one of those kids going nowhere, is what you were saying.
Ask me where I am now, and I'll tell you I never expected. I never expected to be married. I never expected to be a father. I never expected to be a teacher. I never expected to have friends. There are so many things that, you spend years and years, and you find your own way. I made my first friends in the deepest sense by writing to strangers and having them become friends.
You contradicted all of the ideas I have about you.
Oh, I'm sure.
And that's throwing another shoe at me in the middle of the thing. But it's always a delight. I honestly, he's the patient part of this technology. He's going to try to put this together. But it's turning out to be we can't shut off at a convenient note. How are you feeling about that?
Oh, that's fine. I mean,
I'm going to check my watch.
We're not keeping you from your class.
But one thing I definitely want to establish, if we can, is just a little bit about the department here at Smith. And just to, if you'd like to promote it or talk about, this.
I would.
Okay.
I am happier with this department than, I would say, in this era of this department than I have ever been.
Really?
I'm happier with the Smith administration.
Excellent.
Than as an entity than I've ever been. I've always liked people I'm going to use the administration as an example, because when Jill Conway became president, everything changed at Smith for me, and she became a friend. It was just, what? Smith is a feminist institution? No, it's not. That was when I first came in. When I first came in, I almost turned down that job because I knew what happened to Newton Orvin and the so-called scandal of these 3 gay professors. I was not proud of Smith from that period, and that was just a few years before I joined the department. And now, suddenly, with Jill, things were changing, but not changing enough. I still had, speaking of clothing, I would walk into the faculty club where I was told, if you go there and you want tenure, sit at the right table. Okay, so I'm not going there. But then
stage instructions.
But then I become chair, and I have to host the people who are applying for jobs. And I walk in there with shorts, and an unnamed member of the Smith faculty, aged faculty at that point, and I'm older than he was at that point, looks down at me very slowly, up and down. And I knew what he was thinking. You can dress the way you like in your own house, but not here in the faculty club. And it was that sort of thing that I was going through again and again. In my department included, because we had a full-scale graduate program, and because of a person I will not name who said to Jill Conway, that we met and voted to disband the entire graduate program, and we never met, never voted. But she had already used money in other ways, couldn't get it back. And so I said, and one other faculty member, wonderful faculty member, Helen Chenoy, our illustrious theater historian at the time, said she and I would do it without any recompense. Smith didn't need money. We would do it above and beyond our course load, which I continue to do to this day. And it pays. It pays in the wonderful students who come in, whether or not they turn professional, in who they are and what they're learning and what they're teaching me. So right now in my department, here's another shift. I had a department, and one reason this axing of the graduate program happened, the faculty then was afraid of professional theater. Here they are. They had brought guys into the graduate program because they were unable to attract guys from the 5-college or then 4-college area. And now they were intimidated by the quality of these people who were outshining them. Don Margulies has a play called Collected Stories, and his starting point there was, what happens if you're a teacher and your students become more famous than you do? How do you feel about that?
Terrific.
And it was just fascinating, this project I loved being part of, and Joyce became part of that as well. So here we are in a department now that welcomes professionals not as adversaries, not as distinct differences. We have just Tara Franklin, just to start with, an adjunct, and I hate the idea of full-time tenure track, etc. Tara is not only one of our acting, directing faculty members, she is now co-artistic director of Chester Theater with her husband, James Barry, who, wonderful actor and director that he is, became my playwriting graduate student last year and the year before. So the two of them are now running the Chester Theater, which had been run by Daniel Kramer, who is the chair of our department. He's the one you're mistaking me for right now. And we welcome those who are in professional theater, those who want to be in professional theater, alongside those who want a liberal arts education.
I want to take a leap then.
Yes.
I think they did it all because they wanted to live up to your expectations.
I would.
It happened as it should have happened.
Well, everybody in my department, I guess I have to say, I did have a hand in hiring, but not the sole hand by any means. And it changed over the years. It's really lovely to also have a department that does not sneeze at commercial theater versus whatever we want to call the other.
Well, I think he seems. I wanted to say another thing, which is I was actually worried about interviewing you for this reason.
Yes.
I admired you too much. I was afraid I wasn't going to have enough fun, and you've again infected me with the freedom of the kind of creative in this conversation that we like to think we're good at, but that you are a master at. And thank you again for being willing to do it, because you've shown yourself in a gorgeous way.
But thank you for saying that, because I have had over the years trouble when I admire anybody too much, including when I admire a playwright I'm teaching too much. Basically, I have to say to my class, if you can just put, I can't hide it. Margaret Duras, Carol Churchill, Louise Page, Lucy Kirkwood. Dominique Morisseau.
But it turns out I just admire you just enough.
I like the limit. I
I love the conversation.
And there has to be room to correct a person you admire. There has to be room to see the flaws, the shortcomings. That's why I love teaching sometimes everything a given writer has written, good, bad, and indifferent, so to speak, so that you can say to the students, this is a person this is my life in this single author. And this single author wrote some stuff that really doesn't matter to me at all, and stuff that I wouldn't be able to
So
be.
have you been too shy for a biographer to really tell your story?
It goes even smaller than that. And I have to apologize if this is ever going to be in public. I have to apologize to Monty Belmonte, because he's been wanting to do an interview.
I bet he has.
We want up Monty.
I bet he has.
He's just a marvelous human being.
You told me that I was supposed to meet him when we first met.
Yes, I think everybody
And
should.
all I can say is, Monty, I would have been happy if you'd have called me back.
Yes. Well, Monty and his artistic host have just joined you may know, the National Public Radio Station. And I can't wait till their first airing comes out in February.
Did he get you finally?
No, he got Joyce, but he didn't get me.
You.
And I think the time has to fill something.
Thank
I'm
you.
not resisting him.
We are special, just at getting. But also, I teased him by saying that the Letterman waited 5 years for Cher. We were willing to wait however long, but thank you for taking a short amount of time, and I feel extremely good about it.
I do too. I'm enlivened by how you are here and responsive.
Thank you for that.
Absolutely. No, this is fantastic. I really appreciate that.
Okay, so we've fawned over each other enough. Shall we turn to the camera and wave goodbye? Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thank you very much,
well.
Len,
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Special guy as always, Len.
Thank
you so much.